Hey, what is going on, you guys? My name is Rayge and we are back today with a quick overview in regards to the Web Warriors and now the upcoming Rebirth team. In the spirit of them being released in these coming weeks, I just figured it'd be a great time to actually take a step back in terms of analyzing how these two teams compare to each other. Not really their differences in terms of their abilities, but more so where they kind of sit in the game right now. Are they a team that we can skip? And then the considerations going forward into the meta here, guys. So that said, let's get right into it. First and foremost, the considerations we have beforehand, guys. We have to consider the pros and cons right now of building each team. We have to also assess, where is their place in the game right now when we take a look at the early versus a mid-game player, as well as obviously the end game being, the very late game. We also have to consider the limited resources that each player has, whether it's gold, gear, obviously time investment's huge. And ultimately, guys, what we want to answer is, can we skip one team and focus ideally going forward into the future now that we have another team? And I remember I made a video before on the symbiotes and web warriors. It was a pretty clear conclusion. Let's see if we can get to something similar in this analysis. So first and foremost, guys, pros and cons. So these are the 5 web warriors and these are the 5 rebirth characters, 2 of them being reworked, including Captain America as well as Winter Soldier. Let's take a step here in terms of analyzing each individually. So starting off, web warriors. First and foremost, every single one of these characters are actually farmable. We actually have 2 generously sitting in Blitz, which means you can access them very, very early in the game. We have 2 now open in the arena, and then we also have Scarlet Spider now sitting in War, but he was also recently added to the hard campaign stages. So actually, we're in a very fortuitous position that all 5 of these web warrior characters are actually pretty much farmable pretty early in the game. I actually have them unlocked in my newer account, which is only 3 to 4 months old, but it just goes to show you the unlockability and how easily accessible they are early in the game. They're also an all-rounder team, guys. They actually do well outside of raids as well. I use them in war. They're not the best, but I mean, their synergy doesn't make them useless. And as well, they get a lot of benefits in terms of being part of that Spider-Verse, and Tangle Web combined with these guys actually do have value in Cosmic Crucible, as I'm sure you may have seen competitively against some enemies. And then lastly, guys, the bottom line is that they are an easier team to navigate in terms of their dynamic, especially if you're a newer player or especially you're in the mid-game transitioning to end game. Next up, Rebirth. So again, I touched on it earlier. Captain America, Winter Soldier, 2 characters that have been reworked, so it's nice to get some much added love for these 2. Then we have 3 characters here, right? We have a US agent, Captain Carter, and then Agent Venom. 3 new characters right now. So let's go deep dive each one individually. So first and foremost, this entire team, there's 2 farmable characters, Captain America, Winter Soldier, quite accessible early in the game compared to web warriors. We also have 2 right now in the current event. So US Agent is the monthly character of January 2023. And then as well as Captain Carter does have her own campaign event upcoming in a couple weeks here. How is this relevant? Well, if you guys are watching this video later on, the reason they're noted in current events is that if you know how Marvel Strike Force works, characters featured in current events may or may not return for quite a long time. So if you guys are watching this video a month from now or a couple months from now, these 2 characters will likely not be in the game and may not be accessible for you to even try and build this team. So honestly speaking, you may not even have a choice. And then last but not least, Agent Venom, he's a question mark right now. We're not really sure how he's coming to the game. We got the mail inbox notification that he is coming, but there wasn't even any details on how he's coming. So it could be through a milestone, it could be through orbs, who knows? That is a big question mark as well. So that said, really right now, there's 2 farmable characters that we can build. The other 3 may or may not be added into the game later on. And as we saw with Icarus and Cersei, if this is a very powerful, potent team, they could definitely hold back on them or release them in the way of orbs. Unfortunately, the future is uncertain. But that said, where they are right now, they are the meta raid team, guys. They are exceptional. They are future-proof. They are the go-to bio team for Doom raids going forward. And it's not even a question of which team is better. Hands down, they are much better than Web Warriors. And then the bottom line here, guys, like I said, they're just ultimately the better team. This is the team that you want to be going for if you want the best of the best. So, I mean, at the end of the day, as an endgame player, ideally, it's not even a question, but it's really the big analysis here is surrounding their availability and where you are in the game ultimately. Next up, we have to assess the early and end game. So I already touched on it previously before, guys, but by having all 5 web warriors being available early, I mean, they can pretty much provide value until the end game because they were originally intended for Doom raids, right? So keep that in mind. Now, mind you, I'm in an alliance right now where we're doing 70% daily through Doom 3.5 raids. They are a struggle, and what I mean by struggle is that there's times where I have to reset. Some of the attempts don't go well, but then other times, sometimes it can go well. So I don't like being under the discretion of RNG because even as a good player, even as a skilled player, if you're still leaving it up to luck, that just means that the team ultimately is not reliable, right? So just, you know, food for thought. So bottom line, guys, their end game effectiveness really shows until the very end there, where you can start seeing in Doom 3.4, Doom 3.5 difficulties when you start seeing that the web warriors are losing their effectiveness and that potentially a newer team needs to come in to get the job done. And then next up, we got Rebirth. Like I said earlier, availability is certainly unknown, but 100% they are tailored towards the end game. You know, there's already been so many videos out from other content creators that, you know, these 5 characters, even with 4 of them right now, these raids are a joke. They're easy and pretty much automatic. The only thing they're lacking right now is damage, which we'll get once once Agent Venom is officially allowed in the game and we can actually start opening orbs and so forth for him. So bottom line, guys, Rebirth team is the future-proof team in future raids, especially if they bring out, you know, Doom 4, Doom 5, because we know this game, as long as it exists, you know, higher difficulties will result and higher levels will come, and as a result of that, it makes sense to have the best of the best, and Rebirth is certainly there. So, endgame, guys, web warriors are actually required for the endgame Pestilence Scourge. So if you're watching this and looking for the Apocalypse requirement, they're one of the teams that are required actually in the Pestilence Scourge, aside with, I believe, A-Force and Dark Hunters. And it really does make sense to utilize them over Dark Hunters because of their synergy, and they're pretty much used as the go-to team. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well. You need them to be part of another endgame Scourge. We have them already being utilized in Dark Dimension. They're definitely feasible. Mind you, you don't need all of them together, but I mean, they're a feasible team that can be utilized. And as well, we also have them being highly consistent and reliable even outside of raids, so that makes them an all-rounder team, right? I definitely would recommend them if you're a new player and transitioning to the mid-game, starting out with Doom 2, Doom 1 raids. 100% they can get the job done. If you have access to Rebirth, they're good, but not required until Doom 4 and beyond. So, obviously, if you have the full 5 characters for the team, they're going to absolutely blow past the Doom raids because, again, they're pretty much future-proof as of right now, at least until the foreseeable future, which, in my opinion, is 6 months to a year plus. They are also Dark Dimension viable, but the gear that you need to actually utilize for them could actually restrict other metas noted. So, what I mean by that, guys, is... 4 out of the 5 characters for the web warriors anyways actually need the same material, whereas these 5 Rebirth characters, they're actually well spread out amongst each other. The only thing is that they do take up and utilize some similar uniques that are part of some other meta characters, and I'll touch on that more in a bit here. But otherwise, again, their uncertainty is their farmability, so we're not really too sure how they're going to be available in the game just yet. And even right now, in a couple months, who's to say that they're even available to farm? So I highly recommend them for the end game. But again, it may not be up to us whether or not we want to choose this team unless you're planning to spend money or other ways in terms of getting these characters for the time being. And lastly, guys, the final piece I would like to touch on is that, you know, with the web warriors, 4 out of the 5 characters do utilize the same gear, so it is going to be a constriction early on in the game versus the 5 Rebirth characters, which are well spread out. However, the ones that you do need to be mindful of is Captain America and Captain Carter. Captain America needing Vibranium does hold back a lot of Wakandans, so you plan to bring him up, it could potentially hold back some of the other Wakandans. Captain Carter, on the other hand, using the molecular cloth as part of the requirement, she can hold back on characters such as Spider-Weaver, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man 2099. I believe Kate Bishop is also one of them. So, I mean, if you are planning to bring on a key piece like Captain Carter, her bringing her gear investment would potentially also play a factor in you know, mitigating or slowing down the progression of other meta characters. So although Web Warriors do use the same gear overall, they won't stop you from building other powerful meta characters. It's just going to be them in their own pool, as opposed to Rebirth, where they are a future-proof bio raid team. However, raids aren't the only thing that's happening in the game, right? You're going to be, you know, obviously playing in Cosmic Crucible, War, Arena. So there's a ton of other things to worry about in this game. Dark Dimension. So, I mean, that's the only thing to consider. It's just that side factor. So bottom line, I think I would still actually recommend building up Web Warriors and maintaining that threshold for the time being. Again, I've only noticed that their effectiveness tails out in the end game, in the very, very end game raids, as opposed to Rebirth, where they could really slow you down your progression overall. And again, you know, the future is unknown. The uncertainty of these characters when they become farmable, I don't think it really makes sense to you know, shift all your attention to this new shiny team when at the end of the day, we're not even sure when they're going to be available in the game. So it does make sense, in my honest opinion, to skip them if you're a new player, if you're a mid game, even if you're an early end game player. It just doesn't really make sense until we know for certainty when they're coming to the game. Also, my point earlier in regards to the gear requirement, in terms of requiring other materials that could, you know, slow you down and bringing other effective characters like Shang-Chi and Spider-Weaver, especially most recently the 4,000 shards that was awarded to most players. That's a huge factor to consider if you want to bring up Spider-Weaver. So there you guys have it. I think obviously at the end of the day, this can all change if, say for instance, a requirement of Rebirth was needed for the unlock of a legendary character such as Apocalypse or another one going forward. But otherwise, right now, my stance is that I would still highly recommend Web Warriors because their value from early to mid to late, as well as Dark Dimension viability being required for endgame Pestilence, and the fact that they're just localized and a lot of their materials and gear utilize one area, and that won't slow you down if you want to diversify your roster. So that's my honest 2 cents, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'm curious what you think as well, but for the time being, I think that's the safest route right now until we get better information as well, how these characters are coming to the game and how to farm them after the fact. Thank you as always. Do appreciate you checking my videos, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.